My name is Nate Sullivan, and I've been fixing boats at Sullivan's Marina for 15 years. It's honest work. Grease under the fingernails, diesel fumes, and the satisfaction of making dead engines purr again. My wife Lana always said it wasn't glamorous enough for her taste, but it paid the bills and kept our little family afloat in this Rust Belt town of Millfield. I used to smile whenever Lana said, "I miss my sister. I'll stay with her tonight." At first it sounded harmless, family, comfort, girl talk, but the nights piled up. Week after week she vanished with the same soft excuse, returning late with perfume that didn't match our home and a phone that never left her hand. The pattern became as predictable as the tide. Every Thursday, sometimes Friday, the same ritual. Rushed packing, expensive perfume I never bought her, and that careful way she avoided my eyes. "Don't wait up, honey. Sarah needs me tonight." Sarah! Her sister who lived across town in the fancy district where lawyers like Lana belonged. Sarah with her perfect house and perfect husband and perfect life that somehow required my wife's constant attention. I started noticing other things, too. The way Lana's phone buzzed at odd hours, how she'd clutch it like a lifeline and step outside to answer. The credit card bills showing charges at restaurants I'd never been to, hotels I'd never seen. When I asked about them, she'd get that lawyer look. Cold, calculating, ready to argue her case. "Client dinners, Nate. You wouldn't understand. It's business." "Business?" "Right." Our daughter Emma was away at college, burning through tuition money faster than I could earn it. At 20, she'd inherited her mother's ambition and her grandmother's sharp tongue. The few times she called home, it was always to complain about something. Her dorm, her classes, her embarrassingly blue-collar father who smelled like motor oil. "Dad, when are you going to do something with your life?" she'd ask during her last visit. "Mom's making partner at the firm, and you're still playing with boat engines." Playing. As if keeping half the town's fishing fleet running was some kind of hobby. The breaking point came on a cold Tuesday in October. Lana was getting ready for another sister night, humming while she packed her overnight bag. Designer clothes, expensive lingerie I hadn't seen her wear in months, that perfume again. Something French and floral that made our bedroom smell like someone else's life. "Tell Sarah I said hello," I called from the living room, not looking up from the marine supply catalog I was reading. "Mm-hmm," she replied, distracted. After she left, the house felt different, emptier. I sat in my recliner, surrounded by the ghosts of better times, wedding photos, Emma's graduation picture, the trophy from the base fishing tournament I'd won 3 years running. All of it felt like evidence from someone else's life. That's when I decided to call Sarah. I found her number in Lana's old address book, the one she kept in the kitchen drawer under expired coupons and takeout menus. My hands were steady as I dialed, but my heart was hammering against my ribs. "Hello?" Sarah's voice was cheerful, relaxed. "Hey, Sarah, it's Nate, Lana's husband." "Oh, hi, Nate. How are you?" "Good, good. Listen, I was just calling to check on Lana. She's with you again tonight, and I wanted to make sure everything was okay. She's been spending a lot of time over there lately." There was a pause, a long, terrible pause that stretched between us like a chasm. "With me?" "Nate, I haven't seen Lana in months. I'm actually in Europe right now. Have been for 2 weeks. Business trip." The catalog slipped from my hands. The room seemed to tilt sideways. "Europe?" "Yes, I'm in London. Has been for days." "Nate, is everything all right? Where did you think Lana was?" I managed some excuse about confusion, thanked her, and hung up. Then I sat in the dark for a long time, listening to the house settle around me like old bones. When I finally moved, it was to grab my phone and open the location app we'd installed for safety. Find My Family, it was called. Such an innocent name for something that was about to destroy my world. The little dot that represented my wife pulsed steadily on the screen. Not at Sarah's house, not anywhere near Sarah's house. Instead, it glowed from the Red Maple Suites, a mid-range hotel on the other side of town. The same hotel where she'd been every Thursday for the past 3 months. I stared at that dot until my eyes burned, watching it mock me with its steady, unblinking presence. 37 years old, married for 15 years, and I'd been played like a broken fiddle by my own wife. But here's the thing about being a mechanic. You learn to fix things, and when something's broken beyond repair, you learn to tear it down and start over. I set my phone aside and smiled for the first time in months. Not a happy smile. Something colder, sharper. The kind of smile that comes right before you decide to stop being the fool and start being the problem. Thursday came around like clockwork. Lana went through her usual routine, the careful makeup, the overnight bag, the kiss on my cheek that felt like a lie wrapped in lipstick. "Missing Sarah again?" I asked from the kitchen table, not looking up from my coffee. You know how it is. She's been having a rough time with David. David was Sarah's husband, apparently another casualty in Lana's web of fiction. Tell her I said hi. Will do. She was almost out the door when I called after her. Oh, and Lana, have fun at the Red Maple Suites. She froze. I could see her reflection in the hallway mirror, her face going white under all that carefully applied makeup. What did you say? Nothing, honey. Just be safe. She left without another word, but I heard her car sit in the driveway for almost 5 minutes before she finally drove away, probably trying to figure out how much I knew, how long I'd known it, and what she was going to do about it. I gave her an hour head start, then climbed into my pickup truck and drove across town to the Red Maple Suites. It was the kind of place that tried to look classier than it was. Fake marble in the lobby, generic art on the walls, the smell of industrial carpet cleaner trying to mask older, less pleasant odors. I didn't go inside. Instead, I parked across the street at a 24-hour diner and ordered coffee I didn't want while I watched the hotel parking lot. Lana's silver Lexus was there, parked next to a red Mustang convertible that probably cost more than I made in 6 months. The Mustang had vanity plates, Closer 1. Subtle. I sat in that diner for 3 hours, drinking bad coffee and watching my marriage dissolve in real time. Around midnight, they came out together. My wife and a man I didn't recognize, tall, athletic, wearing the kind of clothes that screamed money and arrogance. He had his hand on the small of her back, the same way I used to when we were young and still believed in forever. They kissed by his car, not a quick peck, but something deep and hungry that made my stomach turn. Then he got in his Mustang and drove away, leaving Lana standing alone in the parking lot, checking her phone. She didn't come home that night. The next morning, I was in my garage working on an outboard motor when Mike Rodriguez showed up. Mike owned the boxing gym downtown and had been my best friend since high school. He was one of the few people in town who still treated me like I mattered. You look like hell, he said, settling onto an overturned crate. What's eating you? I told him everything. The sister story, the hotel, the man with the Mustang. Mike listened without interrupting, his face getting darker with each detail. Jesus, Nate, how long has this been going on? Months, maybe longer. I've been an idiot. No, you've been a husband. There's a difference. He cracked his knuckles, a habit from his fighting days. You want me to have a talk with this guy? Find out who he is? I already know who he is. That was a lie, but it wouldn't be for long. Small towns are like fish bowls. Everyone knows everyone else's business, and secrets have a way of floating to the surface. It took me exactly 2 days to identify Lana's lover. His name was Brett Hawkins, and he owned a luxury car dealership on the good side of town. 34 years old, divorced, the kind of guy who wore expensive cologne and thought it made him interesting. Brett Hawkins had been Millfield High's golden boy back in the day. Quarterback, prom king, the works. The kind of guy who peaked in high school and spent the rest of his life trying to recapture that glory. His dealership sold Porsches and BMWs to people who wanted to feel important, and apparently he'd added my wife to his inventory. I learned all this from Tommy Chen, who worked at the parts store and knew everyone's business. Tommy had gone to school with Brett and had no love for the guy. Brett Hawkins? That guy's a snake, Tommy said, loading alternator parts into my truck. Cheated his way through school, cheated on his wife, probably cheats on his taxes. You asking for a reason? Just curious. Tommy gave me a look that said he knew better, but he didn't press. Word of advice, Nate? Whatever you're thinking, be smart about it. Guys like Brett always land on their feet. We'll see about that. That evening, I sat in my living room and composed a text message. Simple, direct, designed to detonate my wife's carefully constructed lie like a depth charge. I miss Sarah, too. Haven't seen her in months since she's been in Europe. I'll swing by the Red Maple Suites in 30 minutes to say hello to you and your friend. I hit send and waited. The response was immediate. My phone started buzzing like an angry wasp. Call after call, text after text, each one more frantic than the last. What are you doing? Don't come here. We need to talk. Please, Nate, just go home. I ignored them all. Instead, I got in my truck and drove to the hotel, taking my time, enjoying the autumn evening and the sound of my phone buzzing itself to death on the passenger seat. The Red Maple Suites looked different when you weren't watching it from across the street. Shabbier. The kind of place where people went to do things they couldn't do at home. I parked next to the red Mustang and walked to the front entrance. I didn't have to wait long. Lana burst through the glass doors like the building was on fire, her hair disheveled, her blouse buttoned wrong. She looked around wildly before spotting me, and the expression on her face was worth every sleepless night I'd spent wondering where she was. Nate, what are you doing here? Meeting your sister, I said calmly. Isn't that why you're here? Behind her, the hotel door opened again. Brett Hawkins emerged, trying to look casual and failing miserably. He was wearing jeans and an untucked shirt, his hair still messy from whatever they'd been doing upstairs. Up close, he was exactly what I'd expected. Handsome in a generic way, with the kind of smile that probably worked on lonely housewives and naive college girls. The kind of man who'd never worked with his hands, never built anything that mattered, never earned an honest dollar in his life. You must be Brett, I said, extending my hand. I'm Nate, Lana's husband. He looked at my hand like it might bite him, then reluctantly shook it. His grip was soft, manicured. The handshake of a man who'd never thrown a punch or changed a tire. Look, man, I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding. No misunderstanding, I interrupted. My wife told me she was visiting her sister. Her sister's in Europe. You're not her sister, unless there's something you haven't told me about yourself. Lana stepped between us, her lawyer instincts finally kicking in. Nate, let's go home. We can talk about this privately. I think we're past private, don't you? I looked around the parking lot, noting the security cameras, the other guests pretending not to watch the drama unfolding by the entrance. Besides, I'd like to get to know Brett here. Any man who's been spending this much time with my wife should at least introduce himself properly. Brett's face was turning red. Whether from embarrassment or anger, I couldn't tell. Listen, buddy. Nate, my name is Nate, and I'm not your buddy. Fine. Nate, this is between you and Lana. I don't want any trouble. Trouble? I smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. Who said anything about trouble? I just want to understand the situation. See, I've been married to Lana for 15 years. We have a daughter together, a house, a life. And then there's you, driving a fancy car, living in whatever penthouse apartment your daddy's money bought you, playing with other men's wives like it's some kind of game. It's not like that, Lana said, but her voice was weak, unconvincing. Then what is it like? I turned to face her fully, and she flinched. Help me understand, Lana, because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been lying to me for months, sneaking around behind my back, making me look like a fool in front of the whole town. The whole town doesn't know, she said quickly. They will. The threat hung in the air like smoke. Brett shifted uncomfortably, probably calculating how much this little affair was going to cost him in reputation and business. Look, he said, trying to sound reasonable. Maybe we can work something out. Talk like adults. Adults? I laughed, and the sound was harsh in the evening air. Adults don't sneak around hotel rooms playing house while their spouses are at home wondering where they are. Adults don't lie to their families and betray their vows. Adults take responsibility for their actions. I walked over to Brett's Mustang, admiring the pristine paint job, the chrome details, the vanity plates that announced his ego to the world. Nice car, I said. Must have cost a fortune. It did, he replied, some of his arrogance returning. It's a classic, fully restored. Beautiful work. I ran my finger along the driver's side door, feeling the smooth metal, the perfect finish. Be a shame if something happened to it. Are you threatening me? Just admiring your ride. I pulled my keys from my pocket, letting them catch the light from the hotel's neon sign. You know what I do for a living, Brett? I fix things. Boats, mostly, but I understand engines, transmissions, all the mechanical stuff that keeps expensive toys like this running. His eyes went wide as he realized what I was suggesting. You touch my car, I'll call the cops. And tell them what? That you were screwing another man's wife in a hotel room and he didn't like it? I shook my head. Good luck with that, golden boy. Lana grabbed my arm. Nate, please, let's just go home. I looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in months. The woman I'd married, the mother of my child, the person I'd trusted with my heart and my future. She looked smaller somehow, diminished by her own choices. Home, I repeated. You mean the place you've been lying about every time you left it? I never meant for this to happen. But it did happen, and now we all have to live with the consequences. I walked back to my truck, leaving them standing there in the parking lot like actors who'd forgotten their lines. As I drove away, I could see them in my rearview mirror, Lana gesturing frantically, Brett checking his car for damage, both of them probably wondering what I was going to do next. The truth was, I didn't know yet, but I was going to figure it out, and when I did, they were both going to wish they'd chosen someone else's life to destroy. Word travels fast in a town like Millfield, especially when it's the kind of word that makes people lean closer and lower their voices. By Monday morning, half the town knew that Nate Sullivan had caught his wife with Brett Hawkins at the Red Maple Suites. I found out just how fast when I walked into Murphy's Diner for my usual breakfast, and the entire place went quiet. Conversations died mid-sentence, coffee cups paused halfway to lips, and every eye in the place tracked me to my usual booth in the back corner. "The usual, Nate?" asked Dolores, the waitress who'd been serving me coffee and eggs for the past decade. But her voice was different, careful, like she was talking to someone who might break. "Just coffee today, Dolores. Thanks." She poured the coffee and lingered, clearly wanting to say something but not sure how to start. Finally, she leaned closer and whispered, "You doing okay, honey? If you need anything?" "I'm fine. Thanks for asking." But I wasn't fine, and everyone knew it. I was the guy whose wife had been cheating on him for months while he fixed boat engines and pretended everything was normal. I was the town cuckold, the fool who'd been too stupid to see what was happening under his own nose. The whispers followed me everywhere. At the marina, my customers were awkwardly polite, their conversations dying when I walked into earshot. At the hardware store, the clerk avoided eye contact. Even Mike seemed different when he stopped by the shop that afternoon. "How you holding up?" he asked, but there was something in his voice I'd never heard before. Pity, maybe? Or embarrassment on my behalf. "I've been better." "Look, Nate, about what we talked about the other day. Maybe you should think about getting a lawyer. Protect yourself, you know? Lana's got connections at that firm of hers." "You think she's going to try to screw me in the divorce?" Mike shrugged. "I think she's been screwing you for months already. Why stop now?" He wasn't wrong. Lana hadn't come home since the hotel confrontation, and when she finally called, it was with her lawyer voice. Cold, professional, calculating. "We need to discuss our situation," she said, like our marriage was a business transaction gone bad. "Our situation?" "The separation, the divorce proceedings, division of assets." "Assets." I laughed bitterly. "You mean the house I've been paying for while you were playing house with your boyfriend?" "Don't be crude, Nate. This is difficult enough without..." "Difficult for who? You? Brett?" "Because it's been pretty fucking difficult for me too, Lana." She sighed, that long-suffering sound she made when she thought I was being unreasonable. "I've retained counsel. You should do the same. We can handle this like adults." There's that word again, adults. Funny how you keep using it. "I'll have my attorney contact you with the preliminary paperwork." She hung up without saying goodbye, leaving me standing in my empty house with a dead phone and the sound of my life falling apart. The paperwork arrived 3 days later, delivered by a courier who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Divorce papers, separation agreements, asset inventories, all the legal machinery required to dismantle 15 years of marriage. I spread it all out on my kitchen table and tried to make sense of it. Lana wanted the house, the car, half my business, and alimony. In return, I'd get to keep my tools and my dignity, assuming I had any left. That's when I called Emma. My daughter was in her junior year at State, majoring in communications and minoring in spending my money. She answered on the fourth ring, sounding distracted. "Hey, Dad, what's up?" "Your mother and I are getting divorced." Silence. Then, "I know. Mom called me yesterday." "She did?" "Yeah, she explained everything. About how you two grew apart, how you weren't meeting her needs, how she found someone who understood her better." Each word hit like a physical blow. "That's how she explained it?" "Dad, I'm not stupid. I could see this coming for years. You and Mom are completely different people. She's ambitious, successful, going places, and you're..." "I'm what?" "You're a mechanic, Dad. You fix boat engines in a garage, and Mom's a lawyer. She needs someone who can keep up with her intellectually." "Someone like Brett Hawkins?" "He's actually pretty cool. He took us to dinner last night, me and Mom. He drives this amazing Mustang, and he knows all these interesting people. He's got plans, you know? Big plans." "He took you to dinner?" "Yeah, he's really nice, Dad. He said he wants to be there for Mom, help her through this difficult transition. He even offered to help with my tuition if things get tight." I set the phone down on the table and stared at it like it was a snake. My own daughter, my own flesh and blood, had been bought off with a fancy dinner and empty promises. She was choosing them over me, just like everyone else. When I picked up the phone again, Emma was still talking. "And honestly, Dad, maybe this is for the best. You and Mom haven't been happy for years. Now you can both find people who are better suited for you." "People like Brett?" "For Mom, yeah. He's successful, he's got money, he treats her well. And for you, I don't know, maybe someone more on your level." My level. Like I was a step down from the rest of humanity, something to be pitied and managed and eventually discarded. "I have to go, Emma." "Dad, wait, I didn't mean..." I hung up and sat in the silence of my empty house, surrounded by the debris of my former life. The divorce papers, the separation agreements, the careful legal language that would reduce 15 years of marriage to a series of financial transactions. But as I sat there, something changed. The hurt and humiliation began to crystallize into something harder, colder, something that felt like purpose. They thought I was beaten. They thought I was just going to roll over and let them carve up my life like a Thanksgiving turkey. Lana with her lawyer tricks, Brett with his money and charm, Emma with her casual cruelty. They all saw me the same way. A broken-down mechanic who didn't deserve respect, didn't deserve consideration, didn't deserve anything but their pity and contempt. They were wrong. I picked up my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the number I was looking for. It rang twice before a familiar voice answered. Chen's Auto Parts, this is Tommy. Tommy, it's Nate Sullivan. You got a minute to talk? Sure, Nate. What's up? Remember what you said about Brett Hawkins? About him being a snake? Yeah, I remember. I want to know everything you know about him. Everything he's done, everyone he's screwed over, every skeleton in his closet. There was a pause. Then Tommy's voice came back, lower and more interested. You planning something, Nate? I'm planning to stop being the victim in my own life. You going to help me or not? Tommy laughed, and it was a sound full of dark promise. Brother, I've been waiting years for someone to take that bastard down a peg. Where do you want me to start? Tommy Chen turned out to be a gold mine of information about Brett Hawkins. We met at his auto parts store after hours, when the place was empty except for the smell of motor oil and the ghost of 1,000 conversations about carburetors and transmissions. Brett's been skating on thin ice for years, Tommy said, cracking open a beer and settling behind his counter. His dealership's in trouble, has been since the economy went south. He's been cooking the books, selling cars he doesn't own, the whole 9 yards. How do you know all this? My cousin works at the bank. Says Brett's been dodging loan payments for months. Plus, I hear things. People talk when they're buying parts, especially when they're pissed off. Tommy pulled out a notebook and started flipping through pages covered in his cramped handwriting. Here's the good stuff. Brett sold a Porsche to Judge Martinez last year. Took his money, never delivered the car. The judge is still waiting for his title. Then there's the Wilson divorce. Brett was screwing the wife while her husband was deployed overseas. When the husband came back, Brett disappeared for 2 weeks until things cooled down. Any of this provable? Most of it. I keep records, Nate. Call it a hobby. I studied the notebook pages, seeing a pattern of lies, cheats, and betrayals stretching back years. Brett Hawkins wasn't just a snake. He was a career predator who'd been getting away with it because people like me were too decent to fight back. There's more, Tommy said. Brett's got a gambling problem. High-stakes poker games, sports betting, the works. Word is he owes money to some very unpleasant people in the city. How much money? Enough to make him desperate. Desperate enough to start targeting married women with money and connections. Like Lana. It all made sense now. The expensive dinners, the hotel rooms, the careful seduction of a successful lawyer who could either pay his debts or help him avoid the consequences of his failures. What about my wife? What do you know about her involvement in all this? Tommy's expression grew uncomfortable. Nate, maybe you don't want to hear. I want to hear everything. He sighed and flipped to another page in his notebook. Lana's been helping him with legal problems, quietly, off the books. There's a lawsuit from a customer who claims Brett sold him a stolen car. Another one from his ex-business partner who says Brett embezzled money from their joint account. Lana's been making these problems disappear. For free? That's the question, isn't it? What's Brett paying her with? I felt sick. My wife wasn't just cheating on me. She was compromising her career, her ethics, her professional reputation for a man who saw her as nothing more than a convenient tool. There's something else, Tommy said quietly. Brett's been bragging about it at Murphy's Diner. Says he's going to marry Lana after the divorce is final, get his hands on her half of your business and her connections at the law firm. He's calling it his retirement plan. The words hit me like a physical blow. Brett wasn't just stealing my wife. He was planning to steal my life, my work, everything I'd built over 15 years of honest labor. You okay, Nate? I'm perfect, I said, and meant it. The hurt was still there, but it was buried now under something much more useful, something that felt like clarity. I spent the next week gathering information, building a case against Brett Hawkins like I was preparing for war. I talked to his customers, his creditors, his ex-employees. I visited the courthouse and pulled public records. I even drove to the city and had a conversation with a very interesting gentleman who claimed Brett owed him $30,000 from a poker game. The picture that emerged was of a man living on borrowed time and other people's money. Brett's dealership was hemorrhaging cash. His personal debts were mounting. and his reputation was held together with lies and legal maneuvering courtesy of my wife. But information was just the beginning. If I wanted to destroy Brett Hawkins, I needed to be smart about it, methodical. I needed to hit him where it would hurt the most, his business, his reputation, his carefully constructed image as Millfield's golden boy. The plan came together slowly, like a complex engine rebuild. Each piece had to fit perfectly with the others, and the timing had to be exact. One mistake, one moment of carelessness, and the whole thing would blow up in my face. I started with the small stuff. Anonymous tips to the Better Business Bureau about Brett's business practices, copies of financial documents left on the desks of local reporters, casual conversations with his customers about the problems other people had experienced with Hawkins Motors. Within 2 weeks, Brett's dealership teetered on collapse. Loyal customers vanished overnight, spooked by whispers of fraud. Banks froze his credit lines after anonymous tips flagged irregularities. Cash flow, already a trickle, stopped entirely. Brett scrambled, begging suppliers for extensions, but doors slammed in his face. I wasn't done. The knockout punch landed when I called Judge Elias Martinez. 6 months earlier, the judge had paid Brett $92,000 for a pristine 1978 Porsche 911 SC, cash, no financing. The car never arrived. Instead, it sat on Brett's lot, polished and priced at $120,000 for resale. Your Honor, I said calmly, I hate to bother you, but I thought you'd want to know your Porsche is currently advertised on Hawkins Luxury Motors website. The line went silent, then exploded. That son of a bitch, Martinez growled. Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. My counsel will be in touch with Mr. Hawkins immediately. By morning, Brett received a demand letter for fraud, conversion, and treble damages. The judge, influential and furious, copied the state attorney general and the DMV enforcement division. Within days, investigators swarmed the lot, seizing records, impounding vehicles with questionable titles. I fed them everything: forged odometer statements, rolled back mileage on high-end classics, VIN swaps, laundered money from Brett's underground poker games. Years of quiet observation, overheard conversations at barbecues, screenshots of texts Lana accidentally left open, bank transfers I'd photographed, became evidence. The IRS audit arrived next. I'd mailed them a thick envelope, copies of Brett's personal expenses run through the dealership, offshore accounts masked as parts suppliers, cash deposits suspiciously timed with casino losses. Agents and windbreakers descended before Brett finished his morning coffee. Brett's charm evaporated. Suppliers repossessed inventory. Employees quit. The once gleaming showroom echoed empty except for echoing footsteps and ringing phones he couldn't answer. Then Lana called. It was past 10, snow swirling outside my garage windows. Her voice trembled, stripped of its usual courtroom confidence. Nate, please, we need to talk. Talk. You're destroying him. The lawsuits, the investigations, everything is falling apart. Funny, my life fell apart the moment you decided our 23 years meant less than his cheap cologne. This isn't justice, it's vengeance. No, Lana. Justice is what happens when consequences finally arrive late to the party. She tried anger next. I'll have you charged with harassment, stalking. Go ahead. Explain to detectives how your husband is simply reporting fraud to authorities. Tell them how uncomfortable the truth makes you. Silence stretched, broken only by her ragged breathing. I'm begging you, she whispered. Stop. I leaned against the workbench, grease on my hands, snow piling against the door. Begging now? Where was that tone when you packed your bags? When you laughed about how I'd never see it coming? I didn't laugh? You did. I heard you through the wall the night you told him I was predictable. Another silence. Then quieter. He's leaving me, Nate. Says it's too hot now, too much scrutiny. He's packing for Florida tonight. I almost laughed. So the prince is abandoning the kingdom, and you, before the walls collapse? He said I was useful until I wasn't. Imagine that. Nate, did you know about his plan to marry me for the business, the judge connections? I knew the day he asked you to introduce him to Martinez. I knew when he started helping with our taxes. I knew every time you defended him while he bled us dry. She began to cry, ugly, choking sobs I hadn't heard since her father died. I was so stupid. Yes, you were. I thought he loved me. He loves what people can do for him. Always has. What do I do now? I watch snow blanket the driveway, erasing tire tracks, footprints, the past. That's not my problem anymore, Lana. You chose the fire. Now you get to warm yourself by it. I hung up. Outside, Millfield slept under fresh snow, streetlights glowing soft gold. The garage smelled of marine varnish and diesel. Honest smells. I finished torquing the last bolt on the rebuilt Mercury outboard, wiped my hands, and stepped into the cold. Winter had arrived, clean and sharp. Brett's empire crumbled by New Year's. The dealership shuttered, windows papered. He skipped town one step ahead of federal marshals, leaving unpaid debts and a warrant. Lana moved into a small apartment above the bakery, practicing law part-time, avoiding eye contact at the grocery store. I expanded the marine repair side of the business, hired 2 techs, bought the empty lot next door. On weekends, I took the boat out alone, cutting across the icy bay, wind burning my face, engine humming strong and true. Some nights I still felt the sting of betrayal, but it faded like old varnish under fresh coats of resolve. Revenge, it turned out, wasn't the sweetest part. The sweetest part was waking each morning in a life I controlled, debts shrinking, reputation intact, conscience clear. The snow kept falling, covering old scars. Spring would come eventually, and when it did, I'd be ready. Engine tuned, course charted, no anchors dragging behind me. The annual Millfield Winter Festival was the biggest event of the year in our little town. 3 days of ice sculptures, hot chocolate stands, and local politicians making speeches about community spirit, while the high school band played Christmas carols slightly off-key. This year, the festival was going to be special. This year, it was going to be the stage for Brett Hawkins' very public downfall. I'd been planning it for weeks, ever since I learned that Brett was scheduled to be the grand marshal of the festival parade. Apparently, his dealership was one of the event's major sponsors, though I suspected that sponsorship money had come from creative accounting rather than actual profits. The beauty of my plan was its simplicity. I wasn't going to do anything illegal, anything that could be traced back to me. I was just going to let the truth speak for itself, in front of the entire town, at the moment when Brett would be most vulnerable. The festival opened on a Friday night with the lighting of the town Christmas tree. I stood in the crowd, watching Brett glad-hand his way through the assembled dignitaries, playing the role of successful businessman and pillar of the community. Lana was there too, standing slightly apart from him, her lawyer's instincts probably warning her that something was wrong. She looked tired, older somehow. The affair had taken its toll on her too, though I suspected her exhaustion came from trying to manage Brett's legal problems rather than any guilt about our marriage. "Hell of a turnout," said Mike Rodriguez, appearing at my elbow with 2 cups of hot chocolate. "You see your wife over there?" "I see her. She looks nervous." "She should be." Mike gave me a sideways look. "Nate, what exactly are you planning?" "Justice." "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer that matters." Saturday morning brought the parade, and with it, the largest crowd Millfield had seen in years. Main Street was packed with families, tourists, and local media covering the festivities. Brett's red Mustang was decorated with ribbons and banners, ready to lead the procession through town. I positioned myself near the reviewing stand, where the mayor and other VIPs would be watching the parade. I had a manila envelope in my coat pocket, thick with documents, photographs, and sworn statements. Everything I'd gathered over the past month about Brett Hawkins and his criminal enterprise. The parade started at noon, led by the high school marching band playing Jingle Bells with more enthusiasm than skill. Behind them came the floats. Local businesses, civic organizations, and church groups all celebrating the season of giving. And then came Brett, waving from behind the wheel of his Mustang like he was running for office. The crowd cheered, children pointed, and the local newspaper photographer snapped pictures of Millfield's golden boy in all his glory. That's when Judge Martinez stepped out of the crowd. I'd spoken to the judge the night before, suggesting that he might want to attend the festival and perhaps ask Brett about the status of his missing Porsche. The judge had been very interested in the idea. "Mr. Hawkins," the judge called out, his voice carrying over the crowd noise. "A word, if you please." Brett's smile faltered as he recognized the judge. He tried to keep driving, but the crowd had pressed closer to the street, blocking his path. "Your Honor," Brett said, his voice tight with forced cheer. "Great to see you. Enjoying the festival?" "I'd enjoy it more if I had the car I paid you for 6 months ago," the judge replied, loud enough for half the crowd to hear. "The Porsche you took my money for but never delivered." A murmur went through the crowd. People began pulling out their phones, sensing drama. "Judge, this isn't really the time or place. When would be a good time, Mr. Hawkins? Your office has been closed for a week. Your phone goes straight to voicemail. My attorney has been trying to reach you for days." Brett's face was turning red. He looked around desperately, probably hoping for an escape route, but the crowd had closed in around his car like a living trap. "There's been a misunderstanding," he said. "These things take time." "6 months isn't time, it's theft," the judge interrupted. "And you're not the only one, are you? How many other people have you stolen from?" That's when Mrs. Patterson stepped forward. She was an elderly widow who'd bought a used BMW from Brett's dealership, only to discover later that the car had been in a major accident and the odometer had been rolled back. "He sold me a wreck," she called out, her voice shaking with anger. "Told me it was perfect, took my life savings, and I find out it's not even safe to drive." More voices joined in. Other customers, other victims, all emboldened by the judge's public confrontation. The crowd that had been cheering Brett moments before was now turning ugly, pressing closer to his car with accusations and demands. "Where's my title? You said the financing would be ready in 2 days. My son's deployment money. You stole my son's deployment money?" Brett was trapped, surrounded by the people he'd cheated, with no way out and nowhere to hide. The local TV news crew was filming everything, and I could see the reporter speaking urgently into her microphone, probably calling this in as breaking news. That's when Lana tried to intervene. She pushed through the crowd, her lawyer instincts overriding her common sense. "Everyone please step back," she called out. "This is harassment. Mr. Hawkins has rights." "So did we," shouted Mr. Wilson, the man whose wife Brett had seduced while he was overseas. "So did our families." The crowd turned on Lana with the same fury they'd shown Brett. She was guilty by association, the lawyer who'd been helping the con man cover his tracks. "You're his lawyer," someone yelled. "You helped him do this." "She's been covering for him for months. Dirty lawyer protecting a dirty dealer." Lana's face went white as she realized the crowd saw her as part of Brett's criminal enterprise. She tried to back away, but there was nowhere to go. That's when I decided to make my entrance. I walked through the crowd, people stepping aside to let me pass. They knew who I was, the wronged husband, the victim, the man who'd been betrayed by both the con artist and the lawyer. "Lana," I said quietly, just loud enough for the nearby crowd to hear, "I think it's time you came home." She stared at me with something like desperation. "Nate, You made your choice?" I interrupted. "You chose him over our marriage, over our family, over everything we built together. How's that working out for you?" The crowd was silent now, watching this very public confrontation between husband and wife. The TV cameras were rolling, capturing every word for the evening news. "He used you," I continued, my voice carrying across the street. "Used you to clean up his messes, to make his problems disappear. And when the bills came due, where is he now? Hiding behind you, letting you take the heat while he figures out his next con." Brett tried to restart his car, but the crowd was pressed too close. He was trapped as surely as if he'd been in a cage. "You want to know the truth about Brett Hawkins?" I called out to the crowd. "He's broke. His business is a fraud. He owes money to half the people in this town, and the other half want him arrested. The only reason he's not in jail already is because my wife has been covering for him." "That's not true," Lana protested, but her voice was weak, unconvincing. "Isn't it?" I pulled the manila envelope from my coat pocket. "Bank records showing embezzlement, customer complaints filed with the state attorney general, gambling debts to organized crime figures in the city, police reports from 3 different jurisdictions, all of it connected to your boyfriend and his business." I handed the envelope to Judge Martinez, who opened it and began scanning the documents. His expression grew darker with each page. "Mr. Hawkins," the judge said finally, "I suggest you contact your attorney immediately. You're going to need one." The crowd erupted in cheers and applause. Brett's car was surrounded by angry customers demanding their money back, while Lana stood frozen in the middle of it all, finally understanding the full scope of her boyfriend's crimes and her own complicity in them. As for me, I walked away from the chaos with a smile on my face and justice in my heart. The truth had finally come out in front of the entire town, in the most public and humiliating way possible. Brett Hawkins was finished. His business, his reputation, his freedom, all of it was gone, destroyed by his own greed and stupidity. And Lana? She was learning the hard way that actions have consequences, that betrayal